It seems like nowadays everyone is talking about Bitcoin.
Now, my opinion of Bitcoin is that I think it's primarily going to be a means of doing illegal transactions.
And while there are many reasons that people believe that Elon Musk is buying Bitcoin, including accounting shenanigans or a distraction from his troubles in China, or even as a great marketing plan, I think there's an even bigger, longer-term play that he's making. And honestly, it's a brilliant gamble. What's up everyone, Conrad Neufeld here, and today we're talking about Bitcoin and what it really means if someone like Elon Musk, who, let's face it, is the Einstein of our generation, when someone like him not just buys it, but really buys Bitcoin. Full disclosure, I own no Bitcoin. In fact, years ago, the very notion of owning Bitcoin was an extremely stupid idea to me. The risks, as far as I could tell, wouldn't match up with the rewards. And while I may be a proud man, I can also admit when I'm wrong. And honestly, around this whole Bitcoin thing, I think I'm wrong. I think Bitcoin is not only here to stay, but I think it's going to become even more important in the next 10 years. Now, before we can get into the real reason why Elon Musk used Tesla to buy Bitcoin, we first have to cover two things. The first is that we have to debunk some of the theories already floating around as to what his motivations are, and we also have to talk about the economy in a general sense, because it's always important to know the economic environment within which any asset is operating. So let's first talk about Elon and cover the three most prevailing theories currently. Number one, his China troubles. As you can clearly see here, just kidding, I can't read Chinese. Officials from 5 separate Chinese agencies had recently announced that they were looking into Tesla, citing issues about the quality and safety of their vehicles. And this is just weeks before Tesla would usually file its SEC filings. Some argue that the fact that he filed with the SEC earlier than he normally would, and that he announced his Bitcoin purchase basically at the same time as the news broke out about the investigation in China, that this was somehow all planned by Elon Musk as a distraction from his troubles in China. But if you really think about it, the timing on something like that would have to be absolutely impeccable. I honestly think that Elon Musk is just a man that's simply been kissed by the gods, and that was all a coincidence and he just lucked out. I don't think his Bitcoin purchase had anything to do with his troubles in China. Another theory is that Elon Musk is trying to pull some accounting shenanigans with Tesla. Essentially, Bitcoin is now going to be showing up on Tesla's balance sheet as an indefinite-lived intangible asset. That's because Bitcoin is not a legal tender, meaning a currency that the US government recognizes. This also means that the IRS can't account for it as a medium of exchange, like cash, and that has some pretty interesting consequences to it. First, it means that Bitcoin is going to show up on Tesla's balance sheet as an asset and fluctuate based on its relative market value. This is a big deal because if Bitcoin were to plummet relative to the price that Tesla bought it for, Tesla walks away with a nifty little tax write-off. And if the price of Bitcoin were to rise, Tesla doesn't actually need to pay any capital gains tax on it until it liquidates that asset, meaning that they sell their Bitcoin. This means this theory actually has some teeth to it, but for more reasons than people are actually even giving it credit for, and we'll discuss those later. Secondly, it is no secret that Elon Musk hates Wall Street hedge funds. After all, years ago, they tried to short Tesla and Elon Musk went toe-to-toe with them. Essentially by tying 8.3% of the value of Tesla to the Bitcoin, and by recording it as an asset that they can write off in the event that Bitcoin were to drop, there are some investors out there claiming that this will make Tesla stock more volatile. And because Tesla stock will become more volatile, it also makes it a far riskier investment should hedge funds try to short it in the future. And in doing so, it would make the Tesla stock more stable. I honestly don't believe this though. I think most sophisticated investors and most sophisticated analysts are going to remove a lot of the noise that Bitcoin is going to put on Tesla's balance sheet. And last but not least, the third most prevailing theory as to why Elon Musk bought Bitcoin was he was just doing it for the marketing. I'm sorry, but this is just so stupid. If you don't already know who Elon Musk is, then you probably don't know what Bitcoin is either. And second to that point, this man is trying to send someone else to a whole other planet. His ambitions are literally out of this world. Not only that, he can move the price of a stock with something as simple as a tweet. I don't think marketing is his problem, at least not one that would require a $1.5 billion investment. So if it's not his China problems, it's not entirely this accounting thing, and it's definitely not the marketing thing, what is it then? Why is Elon Musk buying Bitcoin? We'll get to that, but first we have to talk about the economy, because it's very, very relevant to his long-term play. And make no mistake about it, the play that Elon Musk is making is a long-term play. I mean, yeah, he might get some tax write-offs in the short term, but he's looking much longer than that. Because when someone like Elon Musk starts indicating he's going to start accepting Bitcoin as a means of purchasing his products, you know he's going to be in Bitcoin longer than a fad lasts. So let's talk about money. More importantly, what's the value of money? On August 15th, 1971, Richard Nixon took the American dollar off the gold standard, making the American dollar a full fiat currency. Prior to that day, if the US government wanted to bring out more money, if they wanted to print more cash, they would have to hold 1 gold ounce for every 35 American dollars out there in existence. The intention behind this is that this concept of paper money would actually have some sort of value because it would be intrinsically linked to the value of a known good, gold. In the end, money is only paper, but it has value because we as a society give it value. But this concept of a gold standard also created problems for governments that wanted to print more money in order to stimulate the economy. After all, if you want to print more money and the only way to do it is to have a certain amount of gold in reserve, you're severely limited as to how much you can print. So in 1971, when there was an intention to print a lot of money, they had to remove the gold standard in order to do it. So in 1971, the US government pulled their currency off the gold standard and said, our money is worth what it's worth because we say it's worth what it's worth. Over time, though, the US government began to increase its money supply, printing more and more money. And as anyone who's ever taken a beginner's economic class knows, the value of something is all about supply and demand. If supply increases faster than demand, the value of that thing drops. So in this case, the value of the US dollar dropped as supply increased, meaning that goods and services would now require more money in order to purchase them. This is the same reason why if your parents and grandparents bought a pop when they were kids, they would only have to pay a penny or a nickel, and why now if you go to buy a pop, you have to pay $1 to $2. The value of money has decreased. Here's the problem that governments are facing though. The pandemic hit them hard, and governments around the world started printing money. Lots of it.
And here come the graphs!
And some of the consequences of this are already starting to show up in the stock market. I go over some of this in my BlackBerry stock video. What this really means though is that the value of cash is about to take a significant drop, meaning inflation is coming. This is probably one of the most brilliant reasons of why Elon Musk bought Bitcoin. Hear me out on this. Because of how Bitcoin is mined, there can only ever be 21 million Bitcoins in existence. There is a finite amount that can exist. And while some of the current estimates believe that the last Bitcoin will be mined in the year 2140, although with advancements in computers, I believe that that estimate will probably be off, what it really means is that Bitcoin is starting to operate more like a non-fiat currency than the US dollar. Bitcoin has effectively become a potential hedge against inflation. That is both equally exciting and terrifying. And this also puts governments around the world in a very interesting position, because governments are used to controlling their own currency. They don't currently control Bitcoin. Remember how I said that Nixon took the American dollar off the gold standard in 1971? Well, what a lot of people don't know is that in 1933, when Roosevelt wanted to print more money and increase the money supply, he had to contend with the gold standard. So what he did instead was he made owning any gold or gold certificates over $100 illegal. If you own gold, Roosevelt straight up took it from you and gave you back American dollars in return, and you didn't have a choice. So unlike history, what makes this different than physical gold is that the US government can't simply seize it from its citizens. I mean, they could make it illegal to own Bitcoin, but because of Bitcoin's digital nature, it really knows no borders. China has already seen the writing on the wall and has started moving its currency digital. In doing so, I'm sure it's hoping to remain in control of its currency and prevent a decentralized currency like Bitcoin to usurp it. That's why I always hated Bitcoin though. I thought that eventually governments would step in with regulation and squash it. Unlike China, though, that has a socialist democracy, Bitcoin has kind of gotten to the point now where making it illegal would come with some very significant political backlash. Worse yet for the US government, if corporations like Tesla follow through with their intentions and start accepting Bitcoin as an acceptable medium of exchange, an acceptable way to pay, then the US government may find themselves in a situation where they have no choice but to either A, commit political suicide and wage war on Bitcoin, or B, start recognizing it, at least in some way, as a legitimate currency. And if that happens, oh boy, hang on, because it's going to be a wild ride. If you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Please consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification so that you're alerted when new videos come out, and liking and sharing this one.